Before Lucille Ball took her final breath, she revealed a secret so disturbing that it has unsettled Hollywood historians for decades. A secret she had carried in silence, protecting it as fiercely as she protected her family, her legacy, and her public image. According to those closest to her, Lucille confessed that 7 actresses, 7 of the industry's brightest, most beloved stars, were not just difficult, not just competitive, but truly deeply evil. She didn't mean petty gossip or on-set tempers. She meant calculated cruelty. She meant manipulation so sharp it could split a career in half. She meant women who hid darkness behind their dazzling smiles. This revelation, whispered in the final years of her life, stands in shocking contrast to the Lucille Ball the world adored, the queen of comedy whose laughter lit up living rooms across America. But before we uncover the 7 names she exposed, before we unveil the stories she kept hidden for decades, we must go back to the very start of her journey, to the quiet town where a young girl learned resilience, heartbreak, and humor long before she learned show business. Because to understand the truth she carried, we must first understand the woman who carried it. Lucille Ball was not born into glamour. She was not born into fame, power, or privilege. She entered this world on August 6, 1911, in Jamestown, New York, as Lucille Desiree Ball, the daughter of Henry Ball, a chiropractor and optometrist, and Dee Evelyn Hunt, a homemaker whose own theatrical dreams had never fully come true. From the very beginning, Lucille lived between 2 worlds, the discipline and a structure her father believed in, and the spark of creativity her mother carried quietly in her heart. But childhood did not stay gentle for long. Her parents separated early in her life, plunging the family into emotional and financial instability. Overnight, Lucille was forced to grow up faster than any child should. She witnessed hardship, loneliness, and the kind of uncertainty that carves resilience into a young soul. Yet even amid the struggle, she never lost the one thing that would ultimately define her, a natural, undeniable sense of humor. As she grew, Lucille found herself drawn to performing, first in small theater productions, then as a model in the late 1920s and early 1930s. These early jobs were hardly glamorous. They were stepping stones, tiny cracks in the heavy doors of Hollywood. But Lucille pushed, and she pushed with a determination that came from years of learning to survive. Her persistence eventually led her to RKO Pictures, where she signed her first major studio contract. What followed was a gradual rise, bit roles in films, minor characters, supporting appearances, nothing flashy, nothing explosive, but audiences noticed something. Hollywood noticed something. Her charm, her expressive face, her instinct for comedic timing, the way she could make a simple gesture or glance feel like an entire performance. By the 1940s, Lucille Ball was no longer a background presence. She had become a versatile actress capable of both drama and comedy, yet undeniably extraordinary when she leaned into the absurd, the unpredictable, the joyfully chaotic, and it was that fearless approach to comedy, the willingness to fall, to fail, to make a fool of herself for the sake of laughter, that would set her apart from every actress of her generation. She wasn't just performing. She was inviting audiences into her world, into her vulnerability, and into the brilliance that would make her unforgettable. By the time Lucille Ball stepped into the 1950s, she was no longer just another actress trying to survive Hollywood. She had become something far rarer, a woman with vision, instinct, and the courage to break every rule the industry tried to place on her. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared the world for what she would do next. In 1951, Lucille and her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, created a television show that would change the medium forever. I Love Lucy. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was a revolution wrapped in laughter, filmed in front of a live studio audience, a groundbreaking idea at the time. The show pioneered the multi-camera format that remains the standard in sitcoms to this day. Lucille Ball's performance as Lucy Ricardo wasn't simply funny, it was fearless, it was physical, it was deeply human. Her exaggerated facial expressions, her impeccable timing, her absolute commitment to the joke, whether it required falling, flailing, or completely embarrassing herself, created a new blueprint for comedy. Audiences didn't just watch Lucy Ricardo, they loved her. They saw themselves in her. They laughed with her, and sometimes at her, but always with admiration. The show's success was explosive. Overnight, Lucille Ball became a household name, a national treasure, and quietly, powerfully, one of the first women in history to wield true creative control in Hollywood. And she wanted more than success for herself. She wanted to build something bigger. In 1952, she and Desi co-founded Desilu Productions, the studio that would go on to produce some of the most influential series ever created, including Star Trek and Mission Impossible. She wasn't just a performer anymore. She was a pioneer, a businesswoman, a visionary. And when she and Desi divorced in 1960, Lucille made a move nobody expected. She bought out his shares and became the first woman to run a major television studio. In an industry dominated by men, she stood alone at the top. Not because she demanded respect, but because she earned it. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, she continued to shine with The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy, proving again and again that her appeal wasn't tied to a single role or era. She was comedy, she was television. Awards followed, Emmys, a Golden Globe, the Kennedy Center Honor. But even these could not fully capture the impact she had made. Her true legacy was something deeper. The millions of people she made laugh, and the countless women she inspired to step into a world that once told them no. Lucille Ball's professional rise was extraordinary, but behind the curtain, her personal life unfolded with the intensity of a Hollywood drama. Everything changed in 1940, long before I Love Lucy existed, when she met a young, magnetic Cuban band leader named Desi Arnaz. Their first encounter happened on the set of the film Dance, Girl, Dance. The movie itself was forgettable, but the moment Lucille and Desi locked eyes became one of the most consequential meetings in show business history. They came from different worlds. Lucille, a New York-born American with English, Scottish, and Irish roots. Desi, a Cuban immigrant bursting with Latin charisma and musical talent. And yet, the connection was instant, undeniable, electric. Their courtship didn't ease gradually. It exploded, intense and consuming, pulling them together with a force neither had expected. Before long, they were married, weaving their personal and professional destinies into one. But passion often comes with turbulence. The early years of their marriage were estranged by distance. Lucille's rising Hollywood career demanded long hours on set, constant travel, and unwavering ambition. Desi's band performed nationwide, keeping him away just as often. Weeks apart became months apart. Affection turned into aching longing, and longing turned into pressure, relentless pressure. By 1944, the strain became unbearable. Lucille filed for divorce, believing the marriage she fought so hard to build was slipping away. Yet, love has a way of pulling even the most fractured hearts back together. After time apart and deep reflection, Lucille and Dizzy reconciled. They tried again, and for a while, hope returned. But the next chapter brought heartbreak of a different kind. Between 1942 and 1950, Lucille suffered 3 miscarriages, losses that left her devastated and emotionally drained. Each one cut deeper than the last, testing her spirit and their marriage in ways the public never saw. Then, at last, a miracle arrived. In 1951, Lucille gave birth to their first child, Lucy Arnaz, bringing a joy so profound it reshaped their world. 2 years later, on January 19, 1953, they welcomed Dizzy Arnaz Jr. Their family now felt whole, complete, full of hope. But even happiness couldn't shield them from the weight of fame, personal differences, and the demands of their careers. Behind the laughter of I Love Lucy, the real Lucy and Dizzy were fighting battles the audience never witnessed. By 1960, after years of a struggle, they divorced. Lucille later admitted the truth with painful honesty. Their marriage had been a dream in moments and a nightmare in others. Still, she never erased his place in her heart. She called Daisy one of the great loves of my life. This bittersweet duality, love and pain intertwined, remains one of Hollywood's most haunting romantic legacies. But fate wasn't finished writing Lucille's story. In 1961, she married Gary Morton, a warm, steady stand-up comedian whose quiet humor contrasted sharply with Dizzy's fiery energy. With Gary, Lucille found the peace she had long sought: stability, partnership, and laughter free from chaos. They remained together for the rest of her life. As Lucille Ball grew older, her laughter, the laughter that had carried America through decades, began to hide something darker, a truth she shared with only a trusted circle of friends, a truth she refused to reveal publicly, fearing the chaos it would unleash. According to those who were closest to her, Lucille confided that there were 7 actresses in Hollywood whom she believed were not merely unkind, not merely difficult, but genuinely evil. Not in a supernatural sense, not in a dramatic, exaggerated Hollywood way, but in the quiet, calculated way real cruelty exists, behind smiles, handshakes, and red carpet glamour. She explained that these women didn't simply compete, they destroyed, they manipulated. They harmed others emotionally, professionally, and personally. That's without hesitation and without remorse. And the first name she allegedly revealed was shocking: Joan Crawford. Lucille described her with chilling clarity. She could smile at you warmly while plotting your downfall. It wasn't jealousy Lucille feared. It was the precision of Crawford's cruelty, the way she used words as weapons, charm as a disguise, and influence as a blade. Lucille had witnessed it firsthand: cutting criticisms, whispered manipulations, alliances built only to be broken the moment they no longer served a purpose. To Lucille, Crawford wasn't just competitive, she was dangerous. The second name was equally legendary: Bette Davis, a powerhouse of talent, a woman whose performances shook audiences, but in Lucille's eyes, someone whose ambition could turn ruthless. Lucille reportedly said, Bette could inspire a room or terrify it. Davis, known for her strength and independence, was brilliant, yet capable of emotional devastation. Lucille believed that those who got too close to Davis could easily find themselves outmaneuvered used or discarded in the name of artistic or personal victory. The third woman Lucille mentioned was the iconic, unapologetically bold Mae West. To the public, West was witty, sensual, almost larger than life, but Lucille warned that her charm hid something strategic, a talent for turning even the simplest interaction into a subtle trap. May could twist a situation with a single sentence, she reportedly said, and you wouldn't realize it until it was too late. From Lucille's perspective, West didn't just protect her own interests, she exploited the interests of others, and the list didn't end there. She went on to name Tallulah Bankhead, Carole Lombard, Joan Fontaine, and Ingrid Bergman. Each, according to Lucille, had moments where jealousy, manipulation, or emotional cruelty crossed the line far beyond normal Hollywood rivalry. These weren't petty feuds, these were deep, personal wounds, incidents where trust was broken, private conversations weaponized, or friendships turned into battlefields. What makes her revelations so startling is the contrast between Lucille Ball, the public icon of warmth and humor, and Lucille Ball, the private observer of Hollywood's hidden shadows. Behind the laughter was a woman who understood human behavior with razor-sharp clarity. She knew how people operated in the dark corners of fame. She understood that success in Hollywood required not only talent, but the ability to survive emotional warfare. To Lucille, the greatest danger was not failure, it was trusting the wrong person. And these 7 women, she believed, were the ones you should never trust. On April 26, 1989, the world came dangerously close to losing one of its brightest lights, and within hours, that fear became reality. That morning, Lucille Ball complained of an unusual searing pain in her back. Not the dull ache of age, not something she could simply ignore. This was sharp, sudden, violent, a pain so intense that those around her immediately knew something was terribly wrong. It was especially alarming because Lucille had only recently undergone major heart surgery to repair a life-threatening aortic rupture. The recovery had been difficult, but she had pushed through it, the way she had pushed through every hardship in her life. But this pain, this was different, and it escalated with terrifying speed. Within hours, Lucille lost consciousness. Doctors rushed to save her, fighting desperately to stabilize her failing body. Family and friends stood nearby, their fear growing as her condition deteriorated faster than anyone expected. Despite every effort, the legendary Lucille Ball, the woman whose laughter had filled American homes for generations, passed away. The cause, as medical specialists later confirmed, was another aortic rupture, this time in the abdominal section of her aorta. And in one of the most heartbreaking revelations, doctors made it clear this new rupture had nothing to do with her previous heart surgery. It was unrelated, unpredictable, a silent catastrophe no one could have seen coming. An aortic rupture is among the most fatal medical emergencies the body can experience. It involves the tearing of the body's main artery, leading to overwhelming internal bleeding. Even with immediate intervention, survival is rare. In Lucille's case, the rupture happened so swiftly and so violently, there was simply no time. Her passing sent shockwaves around the world. Fans who had adored her for decades were left devastated. Colleagues mourned not just a comedic genius, but a pioneer, a woman who broke barriers that had held back generations of entertainers. Her death marked the end of a remarkable life, a life of courage, resilience, heartbreak, innovation, and a laughter that still echoes across time. But even as she left this world, one thing remained clear. Lucille Ball had changed entertainment forever. Lucille Ball's life ended abruptly, but her impact did not. If anything, her passing only deepened the world's understanding of how extraordinary she truly was. For millions around the globe, she was the woman who redefined comedy, the woman who turned awkwardness into art, chaos into joy, and vulnerability into something beautiful. She wasn't just funny, she was fearless. She dared to do what no one else would do, and she built an empire on that bravery. Her work shaped the entire television industry. Her leadership at Desilu Productions opened doors that had been locked to women for decades. Shows born under her vision, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, and many more, continue to influence generations of creators and dreamers. But Lucille's legacy was not built only from her achievements, it came from her humanity, her ability to rise above heartbreak, to reinvent herself after failure, to keep laughing even when her world was falling apart. Her story was never just about fame, it was about survival, resilience, and the kind of a strength that cannot be taught. And then there were her private confessions. The 7 actresses she believed carried true malice behind their fame, the bitter truth she whispered only to people she trusted. These revelations did not tarnish her legacy. Instead, they revealed another layer of who she was, a woman who saw through Hollywood's illusions, who understood the darkness behind the spotlight, who recognized that laughter and cruelty often lived side by side in the world she navigated. Lucille knew the industry better than anyone. She knew its beauty, its power to bring joy, but she also knew its shadows, the jealousies, the betrayals, the quiet battles fought behind closed doors. Perhaps that is why her private warnings felt so haunting, because if someone as kind-hearted, as generous, as universally beloved as Lucille Ball felt compelled to expose these hidden truths, then those shadows were real. And yet, despite everything she witnessed, every hardship, every heartbreak, every betrayal, Lucille Ball chose to give the world laughter, not bitterness, not anger, laughter. That is the legacy she carried to her final breath. And that is the legacy the world still cherishes. Lucille Ball may be gone, but she left behind a trail of light, a blueprint for courage, creativity, and joy that generations will continue to follow. And somewhere in the echoes of her laughter, the truth she carried, both the beautiful and the painful, still lives on.